right. Welcome, welcome,
You.
Reverend Randy Callender. How are you today?
I'm great. I am blessed. So just happy to be here.
Wonderful. So, for all of you out there watching, this is the Fellowship Hour. I'm sorry, the Green Fellowship Hour, and I am Robin Lewis. I am the director for climate equity with Interfaith Power and Light, and this is the Reverend Randy Callender, and I'm just gonna do a brief. You have such a long bio. I'm going to do a brief
That's fine.
bio, and then you can share more about yourself.
Mhm.
So, the Reverend Callender was born. Well, I don't even want to say that. Okay, but in Philadelphia, right? And you're from Barbados
Yeah, my
originally,
family's
your
from
family,
Barbados. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's awesome. I also have here that you received your MDiv in
Mhm.
2010 from the
Yes.
Episcopal Divinity School. In 2011, you were the first African American male priest to be ordained in the Diocese of Pennsylvania in 25 years,
Yes.
as well as in 2012, you became the rector of St. Philip's Episcopal Church, an historic church in Annapolis.
Yes.
Um, I have so much more. You're a mentor for the Sutton Scholars Program. You're working on the Maryland Repatriations
Yes.
Task Force,
Great.
which
Yeah.
we will talk about. And you're working on the reconciliation and race. We're going to talk about all of that. So I am so happy that you are on here, Father Calendar. So I'm going to start with, I like to get personal. So I'm going to start with, tell us about you, where you're from, what brought you to Annapolis, and um, how you became the first rector of, or the rector of the St. Philip's Episcopal Church in Annapolis. That would be great.
Mhm. Yeah, well, again, greetings. I thank you for this amazing opportunity. I'm so happy to be here. This is a long time coming, so I'm glad I'm here. And as you just shared in the bio, yes, my family is from the islands of Barbados, and I grew up in the beautiful city of Philadelphia. As they say, brotherly love, sisterly affection. Um, I grew up as a church nerd. I loved everything about the Episcopal Church. I actually have a hoodie. I should have worn it today that says property of the Episcopal Church because I just loved everything about the church and being involved in the church. Uh, when I was 13 years old, that's when I first told my family that I wanted to become an Episcopal priest. And they supported me throughout that journey. And I had a lot of great mentors who walked with me throughout my journey of being a priest in the Episcopal Church. So I'm just happy about being in this church. Now, how I came to St. Philip's is actually a weird story. I was serving as an assistant at Grace and the Incarnation Church in Philadelphia. And my 2 year contract was up. And so I was in the process searching for a church to see where God was calling me to go next. And one weekend, I was at a clergy conference, and I was asked to teach, senior clergy how to use an online website to find churches. If you're looking for a church and a church is looking for a minister, how do you use this uh, 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 online workshop, or it's called the OTM profile? How do you go on the OTM profile and look for a church and see if that's a perfect fit, if God is calling you in that place? So while I was teaching my fellow colleagues, the senior clergy, how to use this profile, St. Philip's Church was actually the example church that I used at the workshop. And so at the end of the workshop, several of my colleagues had asked me, they said, "Hey, Randy, St. Philip's, is that one of the churches that you're applying for?" And I said, "No, it was just an example for the workshop." And they said, "Well, it looks like a cool church, so I think you should maybe apply for it." So I applied. I fill out all the information. And here I am now celebrating 10 years as director of St. Philip's Church. I always say God speaks to us in all forms, and God sometimes calls us in small ways and small sparks. And that was an example of that. So, and now, we're getting started with some of the environmental work and a lot of different things that we're doing. So,
Wow. Wow. So it just kind of happened for you.
yeah.
It sounds like at 13, you knew?
Yeah, 13 years old is when I told my great grandmother and then my mom that I wanted to become an Episcopal priest. And I was 17 when I preached my first sermon at
Wow.
St. George, St. Barnabas Church. Is where I preached my first sermon. And, people really could hear it. They could say, God is really calling you to this ministry. And I just love everything about the church, still have that spark of church nerd within inside of me, and get excited about everything that I do in the church and around the church. So,
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so is that kind of how did you get involved with climate change, the environment? I know this issue is passionate. It's a passion of yours as well. Um, Tell us kind of what led you in the climate sphere.
well, I would say what got me particularly started with the climate work or environmental work. It's funny because, again, where I talked about God calling me or whispering in my ear or leading me to St. Philip's is kind of the same way. Uh, I feel like God was pushing me towards the climate change or an environmental work, or some people may say the Anne Arundel County pushed us that way, because we have this storm pond on the side of our church in Annapolis that was growing weeds for years, and I had no idea what it was for. And so, in the beginning of 2014, Anne Arundel County sent us a letter informing us that we would receive a fine if we did not clean this pond. And so we paid a company to clean the pond to, just to avoid the fine and make sure that, we weren't getting in trouble for what we were supposed to do. Now, I didn't grow up with a green thumb, so I am clueless when it comes to plants and storm ponds. And so I asked a lot of questions, So I asked questions about why is this pond here? And so there were some people who would give me answers and others who just wasn't really sure about it. And so I had two of our members from St. Philip's who participated in the Anne Arundel County Watershed Stewards Academy. And they learned about the stormwater issues. They learned about rain barrels. They learned about native plants and a list of information that's important about taking care of our land and taking care of God's creation. Um, I then learned that the retention ponds or storm ponds are used to hold and distribute rain runoff, which in turn helps prevents flooding. And I didn't know that at the time. And from this Watershed Stewardship Academy, we even completed a capstone project with rain barrels around the church. We installed a few rain gardens around the church. And again, I felt that it was a push from God that we needed to practice what we preach and to take care of the land that God has blessed us with. So I was very excited about that. For me personally, when I think about climate change and why it matters to me, my favorite saint in the church is St. Francis of Assisi. Now, St. Francis was someone who believed that all of God's creation is important, from the animals to the trees to the wind that blows through our world. And his saint day was actually just recently, where many churches around the country, they hosted a service for the blessing of the animals, which is one of my favorite services. And now, because of St. Francis of Assisi, I began to have a respect for all of God's creation. Honestly, I don't like to kill insects when I see them.
Me
I
too.
have that much respect for them. If I see a bug or insect in our church or in the house, I actually take a piece of paper and I scoop them up and I place them outside. And I don't like spiders. I don't like bees, but I respect them because they are
Right.
all part of God's creation. And so climate change is already impacting the world right now. So the animals we love, the health of human beings, we could see all that is affecting with the changes in the weather and the climate patterns, all put all of our lives at risk. And so we're seeing that. And because of St. Francis' love of creation and the fact that we are not taking care of God's creation, we see all these things that are happening. The temperature rising around the world, an ocean temperature rises, hurricanes are getting stronger and wetter, which the world is reacting to the pollution that is happening. And one of the things I like to share is that I like to say that I call the pollution and everything we're doing as a virus to the world, just like our
Mm,
bodies react when we
yeah.
have a cold because something is affecting us. And that doesn't belong in our body. Well, that's the world reacting to the same virus. And I don't think I hope it's not too late, but I think we have to make changes as soon as possible to make sure at least slow it down or revert to the land that God has given us. You know, I want my 9-year-old son and my daughter, whose due date is on November 20th, to enjoy this world the way that we are supposed to live in it and not have to fight the world because the world is fighting back for survival.
Amen. I was just getting ready to bring your children into the picture. I was just getting ready to say you are a proud dad of a 9-year-old and one coming.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if you're one of those who don't want to know whether it's a girl or a boy.
We're having a
So,
girl. A
oh,
girl.
you're having a girl. So you got a girl and a boy. That's great. That's great. That must be exciting for you and
Yes.
your wife. And this work will help. I mean, we have to stop just thinking about ourselves, even though we're impacted by climate change significantly now.
Mhm.
Generations like your children and my son's children,
Mhm.
they're going to be the ones who really, unfortunately, have to fight this thing even more. So I'm hoping and praying for them as well. And the work we're doing here, right, is trying to give them encouragement and set the ground for them to move this forward.
Yep. Yep. And we got a lot
So
to do.
yeah, so tell me, I kind of want to go back to your church because your church is historic.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit about St. Philip's Episcopal Church in Annapolis. Isn't there some significant history? Um,
Mhm. So St. Philip's Church started in 1870. We were in the downtown area of Annapolis. I believe they called the area at the time the Fourth Ward. We were in at that time, and so historically, we came out of St. Anne's Church, which was predominantly white church at the time. And of course, in that time frame, we know in the history that whites did not want blacks kind of worshiping with them, and so there was a Sunday school kind of program that started out of that, where blacks would go and learn about church and learn about God and Christ. And what grew from that was St. Philip's Church, St. Philip's. And so St. Philip's stayed in the Fourth Ward until probably around 1968, 69 is where they moved to the location where we are right now on Bestgate Road. And so St. Philip's is a historically black congregation, and one of the things that we always push is that we want to open up our doors to all of God's children. And so we reach out to white people, black people, Hispanics, young, old, rich, poor. I mean, we've had people in different parties, Republicans and Democrats. We open up our doors to all because one of the things I like to say is that welcome to God's house. This is God's house where we are all called and respected. And so it's a church of hospitality where all are welcome. And so we've been engaged in a lot around racial reconciliation work. We've been engaged, as you heard earlier, as I shared, around the environmental work. And we have ways to go. We have a lot of work that still needs to be done. But it's a church that I love and just passionate about. And I love the people there. It feels like a family worshiping there at St. Philip's.
yeah, yeah, you've been around for a long time. That's historic, right? And
Yeah.
we love the fact that the richness of the history of the church, and in particular the history of the Black church. And I would like to talk to you more about racial reconciliation in a minute. I'm gonna kind of, I know we're moving about and moving around, but you got so much, so much to talk to. So I want to share some of the beautiful pictures of your church. I visited. Well, actually, you and I met.
Mhm.
years ago. Was it 2015 when you
I
did
think it was.
Climate in the Pulpit?
Yep. And you came and you preached and graced us with some powerful words.
Yeah, yeah. So let me share the screen of our us getting together back then. I think I could share this.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was us back
Yes.
in the day. That's when I first met you, and it was like, wow, just the fact that you were interested and you wanted your congregation to hear about it. And it just kind of struck me as something that we need more of. Is that when you first kind of started really getting into climate, or was
I
it?
would say, yeah, because if that was 2015, I would say maybe a year. That was a year after. It was around 2014 when we kind of started really doing some of the work, as I shared earlier, where we were looking at our storm pond and we were looking at getting rain gardens and so forth. So 2014 was kind of the time where we started really getting into it. In 2015, when you were there, that's when, after hearing your words, I believe the congregation, everyone's on board. Like, yep, we have work to do. And if we want this world to be here for our great grandchildren, great great grandchildren, we need to take care at least home. We got to take care of home. And then when people see that we're taking care of home and they take care of their home, it starts to spread. And then everybody is involved, everybody's engaged. So it has to start with home first sometimes, in order to get it to trickle down all across the world.
Absolutely. And I know, most people do the reduce, recycle, reuse.
Mhm.
Um, Great. I hope people continue to do that. And I hope people continue to get into composting and things like that. Um, but it's bigger than that, right?
Mhm.
It's more to it than that we are actually working with. Let's take a look at some of the beautiful pictures. I couldn't even pick the ones I wanted of your grounds. And how big? Do you know how big your um, land is? Is it?
I should know that. I don't have
I
the
know.
number off the top of my head, but I should know that.
Don't worry about it. I asked that because I asked your junior warden. And she said I should know. She said the same thing you said. It was hilarious. So I do. I know that I was a realtor a long time ago. So I think in square feet, but it's a beautiful lot.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
and you've been engaged with for several years with planting native plants and distributing native plants, and the Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake One Water Partnership, right?
Mhm.
um, I'm gonna show some pictures. You can tell us a little bit about them. I'm sure you'll remember
Yeah, yeah. I
you're
can
in
talk.
some of them. So
I,
let
I,
me
I can talk a little bit about the project as you're showing the pictures, if you don't
Okay, sure. So let me get this picture right. Let me do a screen.
mind. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. So I would say, after our amazing work with the Anne Arundel County Watershed Stewards Academy, we didn't do any other big projects until, as you just mentioned, one of our members, who's now our junior warden of the church, she took on this project of working with Chesapeake Bay Trust. And this was this community engagement restoration. We received a grant, uh, which to include 600 native plants and our best gate landscape. It was an opportunity for us that was amazing. As you can see in the picture, we had the opportunity to work with other faith communities. We installed signs in the area to help educate our members and people who walk by our church. And we're even hoping to create programs. We want to have programs where we can have students tour the property, learn about the importance of native plants and how they help the environment and not hurt it. Uh, Going back to St. Francis, I think he would be proud of the work that my beloved members, under the leadership of my junior warden, Ann O'Malley, have done around taking care of God's creation. And as I said, we still have a lot of work to do, and we hope to get others involved. But as you can see, our members are pushing wheelbarrows and planting all these native plants. And it took a community to do this work together. It wasn't just, as I said, members of the church. It was a community who we've sent out letters to thank and just thank them over and over for the amazing commitment, amazing volunteer work to help us. So you'll see the different plants that's happening there. And even while we planted our native plants, we had a little tragedy that happened on our property. Someone, thank God she's okay, was driving her car, and she said she lost the brakes, and her car ran up into the garden area, and the car caught on fire. And so it burned a lot of the native plants that we had on our property. And so we were able to again receive funding to take care of that. And so now our area is back to the beautiful way that we wanted it to be. And so you see a little bit of the sign right there because it grows really high. And so we have people who come out and weed it and cut it down. Again, volunteers, members of the church, volunteers from other faith communities, people in the community who know members of the church or family members. They all come out and help. So it's a great way to work together, and people helping us take care of our home to the point where it's starting to spread. I told Ann and a few other people that, when my wife and I bought our first home, we have a big backyard, and here I am out there thinking I'm the expert, like, hey, honey, we got to plant some native plants here. We got to do that here. So, it's to the point where it was educational for me as well, because I clearly didn't know much about native plants until the leadership and the teaching and just watching it beautify on our own property at St. Philip's Church. So it's starting to spread. And as I said, we still have ways to go. We're not done yet. We have a lot of work to do, a lot of education, a lot of teaching, but we still have to get more volunteers and get people excited about doing this work.
Yeah, that is so true, and that's one of the reasons we have this green fellowship hour, is to highlight churches like yours that are doing this kind of work. And a lot of times it's not noticed. It's noticed when you drive by, but you don't know how much hard work the church has put into it. Yes. And you have partnerships with churches around that are of different denominations. Tell us.
Yeah, we've had members from St. Anne's Church help us. We had Kol Shalom, which is Jewish synagogue, that's helped us. We've had churches from First Presbyterian. We've had church members who are connected to the UCC church. I mean, we've had people from all over who have supported us, even from St. Luke's Episcopal Church. I mean, people will see the acts to come out and help them volunteer, and they come out. So the partnership really is just members of those different communities of faith. They have worked with us on other projects, around racial reconciliation. And then they hear the work that we're doing around environmental, and they're saying, hey, how can we support you? And so people, as I said, family members of members have come out to help with weeding and planting, because St. Philip's, we're a church that I like to say we can function like a program church, meaning like there's so many things that are happening, a lot of events, a lot of ministries, but we're really a family-sized church. We're not, we don't have 500, 600 people who come to church every Sunday. So our goal right now is to build relationships with our community and to let people know, hey, you can come and join us and be a part of our family. And as we grow in number size of a church, we'll also be able to do a lot more projects in the community, a lot more work around our space. And so we're shortly growing as a church, but we're reaching out to more people to say, hey, if you don't have a place where you worship and have a relationship with God or have a relationship with a community, you can come on over and worship with us and join our family and participate in all these projects that we're doing at our church.
Yeah. And the grounds are, I'm just going to share a couple more pictures. I took so many pictures. I walked around with Ann, your junior warden, and she's just so, oh my gosh, she's so knowledgeable. And that's her. And she taught me so much. I just like walking with her. There's signs of the different types of native plants. I mean, I thought roses were indigenous to the area. She was like, no, these aren't indigenous. These aren't native. I was like, oh, wow. No wonder roses are difficult. I mean, so, I was like amazed. I was like, can you come to my house and help me? You are blessed to have her. She is
Yes,
a
yes, we
wealth
are.
of knowledge.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
And so that's a beautiful showing of kind of your church from one angle on the street, and that's kind of what people see
Yep.
When they drive by and or walk by, because
Yep. Yeah.
well,
And a
uh,
lot of the signs, of course, in the area for people who are walking by as well, so that they can, stand there and read it. Because, as I said, this is God's house. All are welcome to come and just, the church is supposed to be the center of the community, and so this is the land, the property for everyone who's around. And so we have people who jog in the morning. They get to come by and see the area. And even if the bushes are too big and we need to trim it down, we've had people in the community who will reach out like, hey, Father Callender, I just want to let you know, I noticed some areas are growing as I was running, and then I can let Ann know. So it's a communication. It's really building relationships with our community. And these are people I do not know. I mean, our information is out there, so they can send an email to the church and say, hey, we love the property, we love the gardens, it's beautiful and everything. And so people are reaching out in the community, letting us know how much they appreciate it. So
beauty is just it makes you feel good. When you see beautiful landscaping, especially a church and God's house. It just shows you the beauty of what was created, and your grounds are just so beautiful. I didn't even know which pictures to pick. I had so many pictures. And are you kind of in a flood zone? You mentioned the retention pond. I
yep,
took a picture
right
of
there. So the retention pond, as I said before, I had no idea what it was until we received a fine from, well, not a fine, but a letter from the county telling us we need to clean it. And so what the picture you see right now was much higher than that. And so we had to have someone come out and clean it. And even in the summertime, you don't see any grass or any weeds in there. You just see the pond and sometimes just dirt on the ground. And my understanding is, yes, there were a lot of flooding happening in the area. And so that pond was developed to help with some of that flooding. And so beforehand, I didn't know that. And now that we have been educated and understand the importance of the retention pond, we take very good care of it. We make sure that we have someone who comes out, because you can have someone come out every other year to take care of it, to cut it down. It doesn't have to be every year as it grows, and to make sure it's low so that the water can stay in and flow through it and not get too wild where it causes flooded in our community.
Okay. I never even knew about Anne told me. And she is, awesome. And
Yes.
she told me that you hired a person who understood native plants and
Exactly.
actually killed the invasive
Yep.
plants, but from the roots, and it was a different process. And maybe as we move forward, you can share with other churches how you did it. I mean, because this is important to understand native plants and why they're so important versus bringing plants from other areas.
Yep. And it's a great example to, again, loving your neighbor. Because if we didn't take care of this property and we just left it alone and just kept paying the fines and said we don't care, and floods would happen throughout the neighborhood, it's showing disrespect to your own neighbors. And so by taking care of it and educating ourselves and learning about it, we're showing love for our neighbors. So we're following, it's in the still form of a Christian model. We're still showing the form of Christ, how to show love to our neighbors, those who, and to whom is our neighbor. So it doesn't matter who our neighbor is, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, whoever it is around the area. We're showing that if we take care of this pond, we're taking care of our community, we're taking care of our neighborhood, and we're showing how much we love and care for our community.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also an example of how you can do your own grounds. I mean,
Yep.
I love the rain barrel. I had to get a shot of that. I assume you're collecting the water, you use it or to water some of your plants because you have so many. I can't imagine it being enough.
Yep. Yeah.
So I know you're a part of, is it the River Wise community in Annapolis, right?
Yeah, the River Wise watershed. That's where the two of our members in the very beginning, who was a part of that, participated in those classes, learning about, as I said, native plants, rain barrels, rain gardens, and brought that education to the church and started teaching myself, teaching me about it and teaching our members and others about the importance of that. And so we started to take it seriously. And now Anne, who's our junior warden, is kind of continuing on with that leadership.
Yeah, I just wanted to lay in the grass when I came there. It was just, you had some picnic tables, where, you could sit out,
Mhm.
and you had some other places where people can commune,
Hmm.
and, you know, so I want I could show pictures forever because I love your grounds. Your grounds are so beautiful. I mean, this is another angle. And you mentioned, unfortunately, you are on a busy street,
Yeah.
so people do see you, but like you said, the accident occurred, and kind
Yeah.
of it was just an unfortunate coincidence that hit your grounds, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you know, it happened. So tell me a little bit about, I see you're doing all of this, and part of the impetus is being in a area where there's flooding and water management is needed, but also, using your facilities and your land to create this beauty. But I mean, how do you see this going? This is environmental stewardship. Um, are you seeing this catching on with other churches, other Episcopal churches in the area? I mean, what are you seeing in terms of your denomination or others that others should hear about in terms of being good stewards of the planet?
Yeah, well, one of the things I will say is that there are other Episcopal churches. St. Luke's, as I just mentioned, uh, had did a wonderful project several years ago where they've been taking care of the same thing, making sure uh, having rain gardens, and they spent a lot of money, received grant money for taking care of that property, which is amazing work. The other part is there are other communities of faith that have been doing the work. That's a part of the watershed community. So there are others engaged. We still need more of, I would say, we need, because if every church and every place, community of faith was involved, it would make a huge difference. And Annapolis, then pass on to the county, then move on to the state of Maryland, then move on to our country. So it starts small. So we need more people to get involved. And as a pastor of the church, I think it's my responsibility, and it's all our responsibility, our call to remind our congregation, the community, that we are all stewards of nature. Yesterday was the kickoff for our stewardship Sunday at St. Philip's Church. And I know when people hear the word stewardship, the first thing that comes to mind is money. And yes, money is part of that. But I use the thing, if there are no seeds in the ground, there would be no harvest. And so it reminded me, in gardening, you sow a particular seed to get the crop that you want. And the seeds that we sow, they produce a life that is meaningful. And we talk about that with the native plants. However, there can be no harvest without the sowing of the right seeds first. So if our desire is to harvest one in life, we can't reap if we don't sow. And if we don't sow the seed for speaking out on climate change and teaching, then the future of our world is doomed. The harvest will not grow. And so I use stewardship as a way of doing that practice. Stewardship is a spiritual practice, recognizing that everything we have and everything that we are is a gift from God, and we must be grateful and generous with these gifts. So stewardship and being a steward is rooted in our scripture, recognizing us as individuals, and that we're not owners of our lives, but we are rather stewards and managers and seed planters in this world. And so a good steward makes God's love visible by imitating, as a Christian, is imitating Jesus. But in other faiths, it could be imitating God's love. And so as a Christian pastor, I think that we have to imitate Jesus's fight against injustice, even if that injustice is against our planet. And so that's why we've been pushing to make sure that we're taking care of our land, taking care of the environment, and hoping that, as we're doing here with this interview, that it's spread out across the city, the county, the state, and more people take it seriously. Because if we don't fight against the injustice upon our planet, the planet is going to continue to fight back against us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to start seeing more disasters happening in our world.
Amen. That is so true. And we are seeing it, right?
Yep, we're seeing.
Yeah, even with hurricanes and all kinds of, we have water issues here.
Yep.
And whereas in the West Coast and near the Colorado is dry, they have drought. So it's extremes that hurt both sides. So our planet wasn't designed to have extremes in a short period of time, like less than 100 years. So absolutely. I want to just briefly share one or two more pictures of your beautiful lands, and then we're going to go on to another topic, which I'd love to get into. So let me share this beautiful picture. This was in 2020. You did a ribbon cutting.
Yeah,
right?
we did a ribbon cutting during time after that was after 2020. That was actually this year when we did
okay.
Ribbon cutting. Yeah. So we did a ribbon cutting and we had our members and people in the community come out, because we had 2 ribbon cuttings. We did the first one back when we started the project, and then this is when we completed it. And so we have our members there. We have people in the community who were there from other faiths were there. And it was just a fun event. It was right after our 10:30 service. We were all outside and had water, and everyone was just smiling and just celebrating. So it was a great time. And most of that is posted on our Facebook page as well. A lot of these pictures, if you go to St. Philip's Annapolis, St. Philip's Episcopal Church Annapolis Facebook page, you'll see a lot of those pictures on there as well. And I think we have some videos on there as well.
You have some pictures everywhere, and this is you
praying
to the people, praying,
talking to them. I was praying with them, telling them the importance of the work, and just thanking everyone who was involved, and also just having fun. I love to have fun with my congregation, so I was just out there having fun. And in that area where you see us standing, you talked about the picnic tables. I'll throw a little plug in right now, but every July, the last Saturday in July every year, we have our crab feast, and it's outdoors and indoors at the church. And so we have the opportunity for people all across the state or county or city can come. We've had people come down from Philadelphia, from my home church in Philadelphia, who have driven down to attend our crab feast and get the opportunity. So now when we have our crab feast next year, not only will it be fun to have crabs and fellowship, have a good time, people can tour around the property and learn about native plants.
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
This is wonderful. Let me see. Let me go back. One more. And this is a final product.
Yep.
Right? Beautiful.
Yes.
This was in what, July or?
Yep, in July of this year. And of course, if you go out there now, you'll see it totally different. I mean, because as the plants are growing, they look different. And also just announced this Sunday, we'll have getting volunteers to come out again to do some weeding and do some other work out there in the area. So we have to continue to take care of the plants and take care of the environment. So consistently, we're always asking for volunteers, people who would like to come out and help us. And normally those dates are on a Saturday morning. We have people come out. Sometimes during the week in the morning, we've had those who are retired might want to come out and help out. But the weekends are normally best for people who are off and not working. So
yeah, definitely. So I'm going to jump into another topic.
Yeah.
I found this on the web. I'm searching and searching. I'm like, okay, let me get a good picture of the Reverend. And I saw you did something. This was in 2020.
Yes, when I was preaching outside, our buildings were closed because of COVID. So
Yeah. So I know that for many years you've been working with Episcopal Diocese of Maryland and others areas in racial reconciliation, racial justice, and um, reparations as well. Can you talk to us about all the work you're doing
mhm.
in that arena? Because that's so important to merge the issues of racial reconciliation um, with environmental justice and justice work in general. So tell us about your work with racial reconciliation and healing.
Yeah. So we hear the word racial reconciliation a lot, or racial justice, and so forth. And in the Episcopal Church, we like to use, following the leadership of our presiding bishop, Michael Curry, becoming the beloved community. And so, becoming the beloved community that God has called us, and is where my passion is. So I'll let you know. I know we were supposed to be on here for an hour. So if I run out of time or whatever, just let me know, because if you got to stop me, because this is my passion. I love the ministry around becoming a beloved community, racial reconciliation, racial justice, and reparations. The Episcopal Church work towards racial reconciliation healing is a long-term commitment where telling the truth about our churches and race, proclaiming the dream of a beloved community, practicing Jesus's way of healing and love, and repairing the breach in society and in institutions. I see myself as a bridge builder. One of the things I often tell people is that a lot of people will say, well, we're all bridge builders. But what tend to see a lot when it comes around racial reconciliation is that some people would bring their stories. So they're building this side of the bridge. Other people bring their stories and they're building this side of the bridge. But there's always a gap in the middle. People don't want to get into those uncomfortable spaces. And we all know, when there's a bridge, if there's a gap in the middle, you can't walk over or drive over that bridge. So you got to have those different conversations. So for me, I am comfortable with being in uncomfortable spaces. I am comfortable with having those difficult conversations when we're saying words that people don't like to hear, when it comes to privilege, when it comes to eternalized oppression, when it comes to white supremacy, when it comes to, even saying the word racial reconciliation. People struggle with saying that word. One of the organizations outside of the Episcopal Church that I had the opportunity to work with was called One America. And One America is an organization that is a movement that brings groups together who normally don't sit in the same room. And so they may have people who are just against each other and just can't sit down, and they work together with them. Even if it's with Palestinians and Jews, whatever the conversation is, they try to work that relationship out. One of the projects that I was invited to participate in, and was a difficult project, but it was very moving for me and those who were in it, was a couple of my members at St. Philip's and other faith communities in Annapolis work with the Sons of Confederate Veterans. And that
Mm.
was a very difficult gathering, but it was very powerful because it allowed us to have a conversation with the Sons of Confederate Veterans group to talk about symbols. What does symbols mean? When they see the rebel flag, what does it mean to them versus when I see it? It was an opportunity to learn about Black Lives Matter. What does Black Lives Matter mean to them versus when I hear it? And so it was a very educational piece. And we knew from the very beginning that no, St. Philip's was not going to put a Confederate flag on their church. And I'm pretty sure that they weren't going to put a Black Lives Matter banner upon where their meeting space. But it was an opportunity to have those difficult conversations, to start walking in that gap area of the bridge and addressing issues and things that are very difficult. And in our country, we have a hard time sitting in that gap, sitting in that
Mhm.
uncomfortable space. And so I love the work because it allows me to be able to tap into the hearts of people, to really hear, to see where they're coming from. We may not agree on everything, that's true. We don't agree on everything, but it's an opportunity to have a conversation. So one of the members of the group of the Sons Confederate Veteran, we've had lunch together. We've talked about our families. He had an opportunity where it was a huge eye opener for him, where he started to learn things about Black Lives Matter and about history that happened back then that really he didn't know how it really affected people of color. And so it really was an opportunity of growth, of transformation, of change, for all of us. And so we, will continue to do that work, and I will continue to work with One America movement. Now, with the Episcopal Church, at St. Philip's Church, we have what we call the Racial Reconciliation Collaborative, and that's a group with members from St. Philip's Church, as well as members from other communities of faith, who are getting together, talking about how we repair the breach, how do we reconcile our relationship with one another. And some of the projects that they're looking for in the future is to put up a sign that shows that we are all in solidarity, that we're all together when it comes to addressing racial reconciliation. And we haven't decided yet what that sign is. We're up down to 3 options. And so I would tell people to stay tuned, to look out for information about that, look out for the signs to come. We're also hoping to create in the future down the road, maybe a trauma center to address mental health, to create a space where people can talk about the trauma and the things that they're going through when it deals with racial issues that are happening in our country, create a space to have those difficult conversations, create a space for movement, for people to go out and fight for justice, to make sure the voices that are not being heard are heard, to share the truth about our country and how this country has, received so much money and things off of the back of people of color, off the back of slaves, and which comes into the reparations. Our Diocese of Maryland, we talked about reparations for a very, very long time. Again, another topic that people aren't comfortable talking about. And one of the things that my beloved Bishop Sutton always pushes is that reparations, sometimes it's not only just about money, it's repairing the relationship, repairing the breach between people of color and white people. And so how do we repair our relationship? And also money comes along with that as well, repairing and reparation. And so I'm happy to say the Diocese of Maryland has started. Our started fund was $1 million, and we will continue to do that work. And churches gave to that fund, and that the funds are now going out to organizations to support Black communities. And so I'm happy to say that our diocese is one of the dioceses in the Episcopal Church that's pushing that started that, that's running out that, making sure that communities, Black communities, are starting to be supported, because we've been behind. We've been so behind because of racism. We've been so behind because of slavery. We've been so behind because of Jim Crow laws. We've been so behind because of so many things that's happened in this country. Now it's time for us to catch up. And now it's time for us to become the beloved community that God has created and called us all to live in. It is time for us to have those uncomfortable conversations. And so we have to be comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations if we are going to move forward.
Amen. That is so true. And I just love all the work that you're doing around racial reconciliation and reparations. Just reading more and more about the Episcopal Church and reparations is just exciting to see. And the money that I just read about that being distributed to Black communities and Black and Brown communities that have suffered the most.
Yes.
From just lack of opportunity. I can go on. There's a list of things we can go on and on, but I'm going to jump into one last topic, even though I can talk to you forever. Let's talk about voting. You and I talked about it. I understand that your church is a polling site.
Yes.
And I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your thoughts on voting. And we'll just briefly talk about the initiative that Interfaith Power and Light is working with others on Maryland Souls to the Polls. So tell us, how has over the years, I don't know how long your church has been a polling site, but it is a polling site for the community.
Yeah, so St. Philip's Church has been a polling site for several years. Even before I arrived there, there were a polling site where people would come out and vote at our church. And we've had people from all over. I mean, because I don't know exactly how they distribute voting, because I know some people can live in a community and their voting site could be somewhere else across town.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that is set up. So not everyone in our immediate community are part of that voting can come to St. Philip's. Like, we have a community that we are partnered with, Annapolis Gardens, where it's, you know, a lot of people of color who live in the community, and I would want them and ask them and make sure that they go out to vote at all elections. But I don't know if people in the community actually come to St. Philip's. So St. Philip's, I would say, is just a voting site for those who, when they get the mail and says this is your location, people will come out there. What I'll say around voting that's important to us, more than just being a voting site, is that we make sure that people get out and vote, especially when it comes around Black and brown people. I would say yesterday I had the opportunity of going to an award ceremony. It was the Fannie Lou Hamer Award ceremony in Annapolis. And there were 25 amazing women who had received the awards. And two of them are members of St. Philip's Church. After receiving an award, there was this amazing play just sharing the story of Fannie Lou Hamer and the work that she did around making sure that people of color were registered to vote. As I was sitting there watching the play and just thinking about the work that Maryland Souls of the Poll does, I started to think about so many people who have died defending the rights to vote. I think about the people who have been lynched, the people who have been beaten, the people who have been shot at, the people who've been spit on, murder, all that, all those people who fought so hard for us to have the rights to go out and vote. And for me, regardless if I like a candidate or not, it is my right, because of the people who fought so hard, that I must go out and vote at every single election. And so that's what we push at St. Philip's, to make sure that every person go out and vote, because for some people, it wasn't just as easy to just say, oh, I'm gonna stay at home, I don't want to vote. No, there were people who died for this. And so we in the past have used our church van to take seniors who may need a ride to go out into the voting sites. And a lot of them were our members who, if they didn't have a ride, we would ask volunteers to drive the church van to go pick them up to vote. We've also had some of our members support one of our alderwomen in Annapolis, to pass out water during the time if polls are too long and people are restless and thirsty, that they pass out water and participate in that way. We are also in conversation with Maryland Souls to the Polls to talk about how we can be more engaged this year for this upcoming election. And we're in the process of working to see what that looks like. And maybe we can partner with one of our communities to make sure we help people in the community to find ways to go out to vote, regardless if that's a party or having a food event or even having to sign up to let people know that we will provide transportation to get them out there. And so we are using our members, we're using our space to highlight the importance for people to go out and vote, especially for me personally, people of color, because again, as I said, there are so many people who have died defending the rights to vote. And we have to make sure that we are voting, because if we don't, we are disrespecting the legacy, the work, the sacrifices that our brothers and sisters had to go through. And that powerful play by acknowledging Fannie Lou Hamer and remembering her really tugged to my heart, and just said, you know what? I have more work to do to make sure that everybody's out there voting. I don't care if it's what it is, the primary, all elections, we need to go out there because they make a difference and it affects our community. And we need to get candidates that's out there fighting for our people, fighting for justice, fighting to make sure people are treated fairly. And if we don't vote, then we can't complain when things are not going our way. And then when we vote for people, we need to hold them accountable. We need to go out and hold those people we voted for accountable and let them know that, hey, okay, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Election time is coming up, and so we really got to make sure that we put our feet down to the ground and we run out there and let people know that our voices matter, and we're going to vote, and we're going to let you know that if you're not doing what we are asking you to do, we're going to vote in a different direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I tell people also, if you don't like the candidates, you can run. How
Yeah.
about that? I
Yeah.
mean, you can run for a position. You can run for elected office, especially young people, right?
Yeah.
It's time. If you're disenchanted with this country, then don't just vote. Go out and throw your name in
Yeah.
the group and do something, but don't complain, because especially the midterms, they're so important.
Yes.
So I want to encourage everyone listening to definitely go out and vote. And like you mentioned, Father Callender, about Maryland Souls to the Polls, we have a campaign, so Interfaith Power and Light. Please check it out, for congregations to, host parties at the poll, to, as you mentioned, to do educational information, or even transportation, because a lot of people can't get there, right? Early voting encouraging. So we thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and work that you will do around this coming election. It's very important that we get out during the midterms. A lot of the local politicians are being determined, and of course in Maryland, the governor this
Yeah.
year, right?
Yeah.
So if anyone's interested, I know we have like 3 more minutes, so I wanted to just kind of stop sharing and give you the opportunity to share maybe a scripture or something that is near and dear to your heart, and that helps you and keeps you motivated to do all the work that you do, um, Father Calendar.
I'm glad you asked that, and I didn't create this behind me because this is actually a painting that a young student uh, put together for me. My favorite scripture is Psalm 46, verse 10, or in some translations, it could be verse 11, where it says, "Be still and know that I am God." And I tend to share in my congregation, everyone who knows me have heard this plenty of times. Even those who follow me on Facebook have seen me post, "Peace be still and know that I am God." And the reason why is my favorite scripture, and I quote it and use it all the time, is a reminder to me that in the midst of chaos, you can always find God's peace. And peace be still helps me when I'm addressing racial reconciliation. Peace be still helps me when I'm addressing climate change. Peace be still helps me when I find myself, as I said, in those uncomfortable spaces where I can find God's love and that God is with me. And so if I am just still and just listen to the voice of God, and know that God is surrounding me and holding me with everything that I do in my life, then I'm going to be all right. And so anytime I find myself struggling, overwhelmed, there's too much on my plate, I just sit still and I say, "Peace be still and know that I am God. Peace be still and know that I am. Peace be still and know that I. Peace be still and know that. Peace be still and know. Peace be still and peace be still. Peace be peace." And it just brings me back to say, Randy, everything that you're doing for your creator. Everything that you're doing out of love for your fellow brother and sister, regardless, white, black, Hispanic, gay, straight, whoever. You are doing this out of the love because we are all God's children. And when I am still, I can hear God's voice and be reminded of that love.
Amen. Thank you. That is That is the word to end on. And I love that scripture. I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it too. So thank you so much, Reverend.
This is fun. Thank you, Rob.
Yes, I thank everyone who watched and who's going to watch. And I thank you so much for sharing. I hope that we all can follow in the footsteps of Reverend Randy Callender and his church, St. Philip's Episcopal Church in Annapolis, Maryland. Please check them out. They're doing some wonderful work. We want to amplify the work that you're doing. And Father Callender, thank you so much and have a blessed day. You and everyone on the call. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.